master server and you have a slave server, or a primary and secondary, and the secondary servers listen to a special collection called oplog, and it's basically a list of data changes that are happening in the primary at any given time. And so those secondaries are listening to that and pulling it down and applying those changes. Well, Meteor has, with their oplog support, they just act like they're a secondary, and they listen to that oplog, and they sit there and they process all those data changes that are coming through on the Mongo server, and they're applying that. And so down on the server side of Meteor, they have what's called a merge box, which is the way that they're tracking what data the clients that are connected are interested in, and so they're able to look at the changes that are coming in, and then based on what's in the merge box, they can push that down to the client. So if you're subscribed to some data that's changed, they'll know you're subscribed, they'll see the change came, and they'll push it down the DDP pipe to you. And so that's kind of how you scale Mongo out. But the problem is, this is really kind of a double-edged sword. So the problem that oplog fixes is the fact that if you have more than one Meteor server in place, you're going to have update delays by default without oplog turned on, without the oplog support enabled. So what happens is, like, server A may run an update and send something to the database. It gets saved. Server A already knows that that data has changed, but server B doesn't have any way to know that it's changed. So what happens in regular Meteor without oplog is it's going to sit there and run what they call a pull and diff, and they're going to query the server and say, were there any changes on this data, and then they're going to see that the data changed, and it's going to ship back down to server B, and then any client that's connected that's subscribed to that data is then going to see that change. But that code was running like every 10 seconds, so you're getting a 10-second delay rather than full real time. So the way to get around that is to use oplog. So that's kind of what we were solving with the oplog change. But the issue there is, if you're pushing too much data into the Mongo server, there's no way to say, I only want to subscribe to this data from the oplog. It's all going to come down. So, like, if you're pushing a ton of data into Mongo, you may actually start to run into performance issues again, like CPU spike issues, where, like, it's sitting there and trying to process all those oplog changes, and it may not even care about all of them, but it still has to process through them all. So I've seen other people like Aaron Oda and Kadira. He's actually got two databases. He's got one that's sitting there. It's fronted by a Node API. The data comes in from the applications, goes into the first Mongo database. Then he runs aggregation queries and then pushes the aggregate data into the client-connected Mongo database. And so that's one way you could deal with having too much data being inserted into a Mongo database. So I touched a little bit on the merge box, but that's another place where you kind of have to worry about the scaling when it comes to CPU and memory. So the merge box kind of eats up the memory on the node side. So the more clients that you have running a subscription on a Meteor server, the more memory is going to be used. As far as I know. And then the thing to be concerned about with the CPU is, whether you're running pull and diff or are you running the oplog, how much is coming through, like I mentioned before, and then what kinds of things are you doing on the back end server side as well. So in particular, like I helped build a fantasyhub.com website that did real-time fantasy sports where you build a team, and when a game would become active on the server side, we were checking every minute to see if a game was active, and then once a game became active, we started pulling in the stats every 20 seconds for all the players in that game. And some of that stuff got a little CPU intensive, so that's another thing to kind of consider when you're writing your code. So That's kind of it for now. Does anyone have any questions?
As far as the experience you've had deploying on the different options, is there one that you have a personal preference for?
My personal preference would be Modulus probably first, and then DigitalOcean would be second. And I would say it just really depends on how comfortable you feel with running your own server. If you feel comfortable, I'd say go with DigitalOcean.
And you use Meteor up with that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question now. If you are using Modulus, how long does it usually take before you have to scale? I mean, I know it varies, but how many users can you get on consistently before you find that you have to start scaling outward?
So early on, we found it was somewhere around. Whoops, I'm logging as the wrong person here. We found it was somewhere around like 70 to 100 people could be connected, but with Oplog, that number's actually gone up pretty significantly. So again, like if you're using Oplog enabled hosting, then that works out pretty well. Wrong account. Actually, don't know that I have anything running here right now. Yeah, I don't.
So you talked a lot about Composer.io as a good hosting Mongo option. I had never heard of that. The two I had heard of was Mongo HQ and Mongo Lab. Do those not offer the Oplog, or do you know anything about those two?
Okay, so Mongo HQ changed their name, and it's now Compose.io.
All right, there you go. Thanks.
They decided they were going to get into more than just Mongo, so they're doing, you can see here, they've got these words changing here. They're doing Mongo and Elasticsearch and Rethink and what's the last? Redis is the last one. And yeah, so they've got Oplog enabled, and I'm pretty sure Mongo Lab now has an Oplog enabled option as well. So I definitely check them out, but for me, like I know the Mongo HQ guys, they do a good job. I've had like no downtime whatsoever. I also love the UI that you get right here. And so I can log in and show you. You can see kind of real time what's going on with Crater.
So Compose helps manage like your shards and all of that, or do you have to set that up manually? Like, do you have how well? I haven't worked much personally with MongoDB prior to Meteor, so I'm just starting to learn about the shards and the what is it, the Mongo config versus the shards.
Yeah,
like
actually,
settings and.
I haven't done any sharding with Mongo yet in
Okay.
regards to Meteor. So I couldn't really answer that question.
Sure.
Let's see, admin. No, that's not what I want either. Where's the nice screen? Huh. No alerts. Oh, here it is, monitoring. There we go. And so if I load Crater, we'll start seeing some spikes here.
Is Crater currently being hosted on a DigitalOcean with Compose?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote an article that kind of compared the three, and this is where it ended up. So this was kind of the last option that I did, so I never moved it anywhere else after that. But the whole time that I was testing all three platforms, I kept the data at Compose, and that made it very easy to move because I just had to set that Mongo URL directly to the Compose database. And so I wasn't transferring any data anywhere. I was really just deploying some Meteor files and then pointing it back here to get it working.
And you're able to set up the environment or the Mongo URL via the Meteor Up settings, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me pull up show you what it looks like. There's just a JSON file that you create, and you just tell it like the host username and password, or if you're using SSH keys, just point it at your key, and then you just tell it like, set up Mongo as false for me, but set up Node as true, so it'll install the Node version. I tell it to install Phantom. Give it the app name, just Crater, and then you point it at, I don't know why he does this, but you point it at your local user directory, like where the app is located, and then you just set these environment variables here. And so
I think it doesn't it zip. It like packages it up and zips it up locally and then pushes it.
Yeah, but it seems like this piece he could probably just guess from your current location.
True.